Welcome to Where's the Any Key, the podcast where we talk shop about topics, tips, and trends for the modern IT admin. I'm your host, Ryan Bacon, the IT support manager at JumpCloud. What was a challenging workflow, and how did you make it better?
I love it. I'll do a couple touch points on it. Like, one thing for me is, our tech brains are always, the gears are moving, something's evolving. We always want to make something better and refine it. We're not just a, firefighter putting stuff out. Maybe some techs are. What I like to do is I'm really big on, I've stressed it a couple times, I've mentioned, is automation, streamlining things, making things easier. But one thing that, that might be a hardship or a challenge or an obstacle is convincing the end user or the client or the company that this solution is not there to hurt them or to make their job harder, but it's actually going to either do the work for them or simplify things so their day can be focused on other items instead. But most people do initially, oh my gosh, there's change. We don't like change type of thing. I don't know. There's this big bad new software that's coming out that, IT is implementing, like, oh, I'm dreading Monday. We're coming back. For some reason, IT wants to do it Monday morning. Why are they doing that? But, so for me, it's like kind of like I've got the villain mask, even though I'm kind of like the superhero for them. And the challenge for me always is, I don't want to use the word dumbing down, but like kind of that's the broad range of it. But how can I simplify it for the end user so anyone can kind of use it? With a lot of cloud solutions now and a lot of the app kind of UI and UX type of stuff, is they want it to be simple. Like Apple's kind of made that the best, I think, in a lot of ways with iOS. Is I always try to use that as an example. I know a lot of techs might bash on the simplicity of Macs and Apple, but it's a good starting point. Why do people favor it? Why do people like it? Yes, there's shiny devices, but also the interface to me, I feel, is very polished. Obviously, in 2005, 2006, iOS was a different beast where no copy and paste. Everything was really easy to use. Now there's things I don't even know exist. But, my thing is obviously just if I've got a project that I present to the company, how can I go ahead and make that usable? Because I need it to be adopted. Number two is I don't want to just be forceful on things, but I also want them to praise it, favor it, and also share their experiences with their users if they're a manager or just be on board. I want them to be a fan of what I'm bringing to the table type of thing.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's a big part of implementing or new workflows or just really change management in general is getting that the stakeholder end user buy-in. Because you don't have that, then it's done before you even start. And it's interesting you brought up Apple, and I found that their methodology, love it or hate it, of that fully see, my words are failing me now. The fully managed, the curated. That's the word I was looking for. That fully curated ecosystem. That I've found that kind of thing helps out a lot, and and really helps break down that resistance. I mean, we can talk about with workflows in IT, we can talk about ticketing, and this is what comes to mind, like doing that curated experience, or it's curated, but they don't realize that it's curated. It's because it's all done. You integrate it into their normal behaviors.
Yes.
Because we do. From our previous discussions, we're on the same ticketing system.
Yes.
It's Slack native, and we have it there just because people are used to sending a DM or putting it in a Slack channel, just be like, hey, I need this. And, and we went with it so you don't have to be like, oh, put in a ticket, go here, put in a ticket, send an email, put in a ticket, all this stuff. It's just a matter of oh, okay, you told me what you want. I put that little ticket emoji on it. It becomes a ticket. That ease workflow. We are controlling their experience, but they don't realize that their experience is being controlled because it just feels natural to them.
They don't understand all, end user wise, whether it's a client or somebody, if I'm at a full time at a company and I'm the IT guy running ticketing and stuff, the end user doesn't understand the whole organization side of why a ticket exists and, where it is. So, it's not just, hey, IT wants to do it for IT, but we've got to find a way that the end user still gets a good experience with that. And, bringing on that ticketing system you're touching on that we both use, that was one thing. It's like I kind of waited for the quote unquote right time, right ticketing system to bring in that fit our model at Primitive, which were very Slack heavy. You know, I don't want to say we barely use email, but we even have vendors that are on Slack channels and Slack Connect and all that type of stuff where a lot of pretty much, I don't want to say just 90%, but about 90% of our work is done through Slack. So I'm like, okay, I need a very Slack, you know, strong Slack presence for ticketing. And, you know, even as an IT guy, if I work with a software vendor, you might work with your, you know, your account rep or another way. But when the company grows, then you realize you might get offended as the IT guy going, wait, my account rep told me to submit a ticket, but it used to be personal, right?
Yeah.
So internally over here at Primitive, for us, it's like, well, I've been such a, you know, personality for the company on the tech side, and I came from a skateboarding background. So I've kind of not born and raised with the company, but I've grown with the company where, you know, everybody expects a certain type of return of either attention or care to detail, attention to detail, and all that. So I'm like, okay, you know, they love Slack DMs. I don't want to really change that, but how can I do it while I'm bringing an extra body into my department? If I'm trying to go on vacation now, you know, I haven't got a vacation for quite some time. So how can I get it so somebody can ping me easily, but also I have transparency for history purposes and for my co-admin, my assistant to see everything, you know? And obviously, you know, if for, like I mentioned, history, it's like if something comes up, we actually had a weird bug with Adobe recently. Totally love Adobe. It's not really Adobe fault, but just notice it with a lot of our big Sur systems instead of Monterey that nothing in the activity monitor was really pinging the processor or pegging it or anything. But the companies, only if they were plugged into an OWC dock, out of all things, which I love, would come to a standstill. It was very awkward. Even an LG USB-C monitor with built-in dock and stuff had it. So it was only docked items with Adobe that were on Big Sur, no matter what version, had this issue. The fans would ramp up. You could reboot the machine, work great for about 10 minutes. Fans would speed up. I was driving me crazy, but it was nice because I could have a couple tickets and some automated answers and all that type of stuff. So it was nice. So I'm not, you know, replying back with DMs to everybody, hey, try this, try that, or, you know, unplug your monitor. I just had an automated canned response, and it was really nice. And then, you know, I had transparency to my assistant, my co-admin, and it was like, we got to kind of gossip over some coffee, like at the end of the day, like, man, how many tickets we had on Big Sur for Adobe. So, but that was kind of a talk. So it actually took some stress out of it for us. And, you know, and the users they thought they were getting, you know, taken care of in a timely manner and all that type of stuff. So it was really nice. Definitely. The end users were happy. I was happy. My assistant was happy. So it made for a funny week, but a good week, actually.
Yeah. And actually, you brought up a really good point with, you know, with being the face of IT in the company. You know,
yes.
It's really interesting. You know, I started here at Jump Cloud as the first IT person and was the only IT person for a while. And then we, you know, slowly then we eventually added a second, then a third, and then a fourth, and then we just added a fifth. We had a fifth person start today. So it's really interesting. You kind of tell how long someone's been at the company.
Sure.
With who they end up DMing and who, you know, and so like the people who have been here for a while, you know, I still get DMs being like, hey, can you
sure.
help me with this and all this stuff. And then our you know, the second, you know, then the second person, Noah, will get, you know, he has his group of people that were used to working with him from when, you know, he started. It's really interesting to see that. But the point of transparency, that becomes the big issue. And also the ease of use, because I just went on vacation, you know, this past week, and yeah, it's if you're the go-to IT person and you don't have a good way for other people to handle the problems, you can't get away at all.
Can't get away. True.
You're there always for good or bad. You're tied to it.
I'm getting the wife to understand that. She's in her banker role and stuff, but now she's kind of got a position where she's at many hats, that one key player in the game, and she's like, she's now the one first in the morning checking emails on the phone, kind of like checking tickets, and then at the end of the night, she's checking things, making sure deals, because she's on different coasts and everything else like that. But yeah, it's just you're totally right on the many hats in that area, and you know, being that one key guy for it. So how can I kind of alleviate some of the stress and better streamline that, and also feel like the end user is still getting that same care of attention that I gave. And Jeff, my co-admin, he's a great guy. He's got great knowledge. I've actually worked with him for almost 20 years together. So he's a great fit for Primitive, where, you know, no hate on my power supply changers out there. But he's got many skills where I've got him on some implementations of some of the software that I've got a couple goals and checklists and hit points of things, and go ahead and let him take that project, or I'll put him on tickets, or vice versa. But it's a cool thing. It's a new feeling for me because I'm not used to this after almost 13 years with Primitive, 8 years full time. So it's just showing the growth of the company. We've got about over 120 employees internally, and then we've got probably about 30 contractors and other things that or I just say some outside users, virtual assistants and stuff we're working with. Just a lot of different things kind of going around. So we don't have that face-to-face anymore too after COVID hit. We might have a lot of new faces that you only see them on Zoom, or they might just have an avatar on Zoom, or just a little black square that's there. You don't know who they are anymore, but it just makes it fun. So, it's everybody's happy. They're still sending emojis. So as long as emojis are thumbs up, we're looking good.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's that accessibility, that personal touch on on your email, not on your email, God, on your ticket handling, and it just really just in your communications in general, really helps with that. I mean, even when we send emails out to people, we as a team, we talked about, like, should we use the send emails as our IT email distro?
Sure.
As we thought about it, it's like, no, don't. Like, just send it an email from your individual email account. That, for one, that helps fight against phishing.
Oh yeah.
So, but also it is just you're not just that faceless IT organization that's just pushing stuff out, and I felt that is just a lot better, and it makes to bring it back around to workflows, is when you have that buy-in, when you have that comfort level with your customers.
Yes.
I'm trying to break myself from saying end users.
Sure. Yeah. That's true.
When you have that buy-in from your customers, it makes taking them through that workflow so much easier, because you're not you're less likely to get resisted at every turn. If you some workflows, you have certain, like, security checks, controls in place that you have to go through. It makes it a lot. They tend to be a lot more accommodating to stuff like that, to things that may be traditionally seen as inconveniences, if they have that good buy-in. Yes. Or even if you have to change something, because if I've found that if you show that you're not just going out and just unilaterally changing things because you feel like it.
Sure. Good challenge sometimes, for sure.
Yeah. It buy-in's a lot easier. And I found that another good part of that is transparency. If you're going to change something, be able to explain to people why you change it. Or blame it on security, one of the two. Yeah,
I'm a direct report to our CFO, who's very tech-minded. He's one of, I always call him the non-skater of the company, but he's a skater at heart now. Yeah. We've turned him into a skater, but he's given a lot of opportunity to me to kind of explore some of these items, but he also has, trained me in a certain way of having a good, strong sale to the company, but not, I'm kind of known as the guy that likes to use emojis a lot. I also have so much information in my head that I love to share it with the world, but people want cliff notes. So when I do a launch, or you talk about transparency or anything like that, I'll keep it down to 2 or 3 bullets, unless I have to have some type of procedure on training that people reference on a shorter guide. But it's literally just 2 or 3 lines. What is our ticketing system? Why? And then here's how you use it. Here's the go live type of thing. Keep it straight to the point, but have a good product that people will trust into. And I've followed some of that advice from Mitch, our CFO, and so forth. And it's been good. It's just nice to have somebody supportive also on the upper management side that can help me reinforce. And also I can know that when I was a single person in my department, I technically had 2 people, because I did have, my Mitch in my department in a way. We always called him IT number 2. Which is fun. So, luckily I got somebody else that's, I'm not just talking to my computer or looking in the mirror or something, but I did have somebody, internally in the company that understood the reasoning behind things and so forth. But it's helped us grow and expedite our growth a lot. We've got a lot of good tools in our toolbox, which has been great. I actually will touch on one funny thing with, you mentioned about, like the personal touch, and, before bringing in ticketing system, people might not know to DM you, or they'll still DM out of habit. that was kind of like the personal touch was text messaging for us. And one complaint I've had with, on iOS side is you can't mark a text message unread. You can't set a reminder like you can in Slack. So using a ticketing system in Slack, it's great because obviously you can mark it unread, or you can, hover over those three dots, or if you're on a mobile phone, you can press and hold, but you can set a reminder for it. So you don't have to have, canned reminders, which we do still have. Like if you don't pick up a ticket, hey, 911 or whatever, we got an alert after an hour or something.
Mayday.
Mayday. Yeah, you get the Mayday. Yep, it's pre-configured still to that. So it's just nice that, Slack brings a totally different angle to it for us. And my co-admin, Jeff, he looks at it, he goes, wow, he wasn't a Slack user, more of a Microsoft environment stuff, so using Teams, but came naturally. But he really, really liked the interface and realized, wow, this is great for us. So yes, that was my personal thing, text messaging. I'm like, how do I get people off text messaging and move over to that? It wasn't even the DM side, but thanks to Focus and Do Not Disturb on iOS, it's been great. Because somebody might press that dot and still override it to send me a notification, but if I don't answer it, they kind of get the point, and they'll go ahead and open up a ticket in Slack real quick or something. So kind of funny one to share.
I will say that I worked at there. It took me a couple jobs to realize that to become really hesitant of giving out my cell phone number to people, and so when I got to the point where like only a select few have my actual cell phone number. It's like I have layers. I have my actual cell phone number, then I have a Google Voice number.
Yes. You got my VoIP extension. You got and they'll try all of those if they got it, and they'll find your cell phone somehow. It was getting passed around. Actually, it's funny on our help ticketing system in Slack. I have different tiers and automated can responses. So if somebody chooses critical, I have only probably gotten 2 or 3, knock on wood, critical priority tickets in there because I actually have the drop down say, don't use this unless you really, I have it in a funny kind of manner on it. And the automatic thing says, hey, check Ricky's status. Is he on vacation? Then, somebody else will, take care of you shortly or whatever. But just little reminders but my cell number is there on the critical ones. So I have a
brave soul.
I could always remove it, which is great. But yeah, I've had it in there, and the only time I had any cell phone sides is probably our first 3 or 4 team members or employees that I've worked with since I've started with Primitive. So it's pretty, I think people know in a way like, okay, do I want to talk? Is this really critical or something? So it's just kind of interesting. We still have that much of a personal touch here at Primitive, which is a lot of my friends are working at companies, I don't know, 75 plus, like we would not dare ever put our cell number out there. So it's just a funny talking point. So
it is. Now I want to back up a little bit.
Sure.
And with, you were talking about adding that second person, and with it being so recent, like I could look back and see how it changed, like how I had to adapt to grow to expanding our team. I'd like to hear from you. Like let's compare notes. Like how did things change? How did it going from 1 to 2 people?
It's great for me. I'm ready to add more if we want to. Like that's the thing. I think breaking that ice for the first thing. I'm not shy to hiring help. Internally, it's different for me. Primitive has been a full-time gig, like I mentioned, for at least 8 years. It was a contractor gig for me before. I ran a consulting firm with just by myself, but with subs under me or beside me. I like to say. I don't like to say under because they're great guys. Sometimes they know more than me. But it's fun because, on the subcontractor level, where you're going to go into a job, whether it's a home automation programming job or something else in there, and you can wear all those hats, but you've got turnaround, you got deadlines, you got to get in and out of there maybe in 2 weeks or by the building being done. I don't know at that time. So I'm familiar with hiring help in that aspect. But now when I'm running a department, I don't like to use it's always been we, even though it's been a single person here at Primitive. So my one thing I wanted to do is get somebody, because I wore so many hats internally and we grew, I don't want to say super rapidly, but when I started the company in 2013, full time, we had 10 employees. And sitting here at this time trying to add an extra body in my department with 100 people at that time during COVID, everything's remote, was definitely, I had to strategically think what did I need help for? What did I need to get alleviated on? Is it help tickets? Is it physical? Is it a physical body? Because we do have our warehouse location, which has about 30 plus iOS, iPad devices, scanners, that type of thing for picking and packing orders and ship stations, all that type of stuff. Do I need somebody on site 24/7 for there? Do we have a lot of on-prem other than that? Not really. So I wanted somebody that could share, because I've got a lot of these new implementation projects. JumpCloud was one that I tackled during COVID. I did all that remote and got everybody on board during that. Getting SSO, set up for different things, getting procedures done for that. We're moving over to Ignite for Cloud Drive. Mm-hmm. I could do all those projects, but do I want to spend 3 to 4 quarters trying to deploy this to the company? No, I'd like to hire some help that could also help me implement those items, but also, take over some help tickets and, cover for me when I'm on vacation, or got a baby on the way. So, if I got a doctor's appointment midday in the afternoon or something. So it was a little different because, I feel like somebody in my position is going to be like, I want to get somebody that I want to clone of myself, right? I want a carbon copy, but a little bit more. So at Primitive's time, we felt like, okay, we should bring a body that can, zip tie cables, do something like that right before COVID. And I'm like, that's great and all, but at the same time, we came from such a manual process of doing things, which JumpCloud helped. SSO helps, you don't have all these rogue accounts. You got managed devices, you got all these things. So now I don't have to worry so much about that. And I can train somebody easily on it. Or I can get somebody with a little bit more credentials that, could help me even hire. So that breaking the ice, finding that right candidate really helped. But now I've got a lot of structure and a lot of visualization on what I want our department to do and how that's going to look with Primitive present time and during growth. So procedures are in place, tech is in place, solutions are in place, our roadmap is in place, and a vision's in place. When I originally was presented with having to grow the department, I had I had some knowledge of what I want to do there. But I had to kind of figure out and, dig through all my paperwork and figure out what do I really want to accomplish with the tech department. So now that that's broken, the ice is broken, I'm ready to rock and roll. Like I mentioned, I'm ready to hire some troops, get that growing. I don't want to overhire, but, I think another body here would be great. That could be remote and so forth. But just with the ticket volume and what we're doing and growing with, I definitely could use another body in this department. So we're looking, we're planning. But now I'm working with my co-admin. I'm strategically, as a team doing that. So I've gained some black hairs back instead of gray hairs, which has been great. So, but now I just feel like I can now concentrate on these projects and managing these items instead of just being that guy in the hamster wheel. So it's totally shifted gears for me. Definitely has. So that's my end point for sure.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And it's something to add to that. I found that every time that I've added somebody has been an awesome opportunity to take another look at how we do things and revamp it. Because, it's, you never want to get stuck in your ways. Never. I mean, that's just like the kiss of death. You always want to be, continually improving things. You always want to, stay on your toes and stay nimble. And so every time I interview somebody or every time, I know that I'm going to make somebody an offer, I tell them, I'm like, come in here ready to shake the boat.
I love it.
I want that fresh set of eyes at what we're doing things. And I want you to question, like, why are we doing things? And if the answer ends up being, well, this is the way we've always done it, well, then maybe we should reassess and look at it again. And that's been great. That, and also it's a good time to revamp your documentation, because
spring cleaning. Yes.
that always gets left by. That's one of the first things to go by the wayside when you get busy. So.
Well, actually, I'm pretty. We're working on a skate park project that I talked to you vaguely about program automation. I'm going through everything, and I'm actually revamping I call it my SOP list of like, how does first person in the building work? And I know mentally how it works, but I want to put together a user guide or a one page of that. We just adopted a MDM and Zero Touch through JumpCloud, thanks to JumpCloud having some great tools for that. But talk about revamping processes. I think we had 5 or 6 Mac users, new employees that were onboarding, and Jeff and we look at each other like, I think this is time to get Zero Touch configured for us. Let's go ahead and do it. So, I think we probably had a week and a half to go through what I already had a checklist in Trello of all my manual processes that we do. Or, I didn't want to stay in the old habit of like trying to image still, from a migration assistant or a time machine or whatever we had on it or another boot drive. I'm like, no, it's the time to revamp that. But the whole time we're doing that, I'm actually typing out my processes again, revamping my documentation. So I'm one of those guys that really likes to stay organized in that area. And Trello's helped me with that quite a bit. I'm kind of known and made fun a little bit, like, oh, Ricky, if you need to know how to use Trello internally at Primitive, call Ricky real quick. He'll help you organize. Look at his calendar. It's going to give you a headache and how he has everything organized, but he has everything down to the details. So yes, I do like to clean things up. I don't like to stay put in one area too long. I don't want to say it gets me in trouble because I haven't gotten in trouble with it. I think the biggest thing is I have such a crazy mind. Not the great, beautiful mind. I'm not that crazy, but I got such a mindset that I'm always trying to evolve and innovate and see. And it's like, I like to stay on top of technology, and I'm always looking, is this the right timing? I don't want to do too much too soon because obviously you can get burnout, and you also want to structure things where, hey, this is a great idea, but let's go ahead and do this in Q3. We've got a lot of other growth and we need to put our attention over here. So that's my side, is I don't want to add too much to my department either because we've got all these ideas. Hey, if you're ahead of the curve already, we don't need to totally speed up things. Let's go ahead and address this in Q3, Q4 or something. So
yeah, sure.
That's
one thing. Your weaknesses first before doing that. That totally makes sense. And hats off to you for being a king on documentation, because that is a like on. I love documentation, and I would love to keep it up to, I want to keep it up to date, but that's always been a challenge a point for me, as well as a lot of other admins that I know. So when the latest person that I hired, she in the interview, she's like, oh, I love documentation. I'm like, her day one, I'm like, here's our playbook. It's like a lot of the stuff is good. Some of the stuff is out of date. Like taking this and turning it into an internal knowledge base. That's one of the things that we're going to work on. Is that's going to be like your long-term pet project. So from day one, you have something to work on, and so it's key. And like having those processes, having those workflows documented and defined and consistent is important. And one of the reasons why I say that it's bringing on new people is a good time to take another look at that, is because you start off with getting everything written down, but things change little by little over time.
Sometimes weekly though too.
Yeah, and people will tend to internalize those changes.
Yes.
And so by the time another person starts and they look at the process, you're like, oh man, it's completely different now. So
well, what's funny is I always did all the documentation as if I was going to train additional bodies in my department and stuff in the tech department. I always wrote things up as if I was going to use them as a training guide or something. It just, I haven't had a full-time position elsewhere. As I mentioned, it was always a consultant or a contractor. So either I'd be under somebody else, or, my company would be hired to come in and, in the Windows Server days, set up a Windows server, set up the domain, do all that type of stuff, or I'm coming in and setting up WAPs and everything else over there. But so I didn't really have, so it's kind of like it's such a learning process for me, but I always felt like, hey, you can't go wrong if you have a blueprint or something. And I've always been so transparent, whether that's, hey, maybe I'm only here for a year or two while we grow, and maybe it's not the fit for me. I'm not the guy that likes to hold that master key and, hold the company hostage when, we part ways. I'd actually really like to, industry is small. Everybody talks and that type of thing. So I just always like to have that so I can give that user guide over for certain reasons. I don't want to give my trade secrets to everybody, but it's, I was hoping it would be used to train or get additional hires and so forth. But, it turned out to be good for me, because I basically had everything transparent, ready to go for my co-admin. I didn't hand him a big book or a Bible, but I go, here's my things that we do around here. What would you like to learn? Here's a guide. Here's a KB on it.
Yep.
Do you want the personal touch? We can go over it on Zoom. We can do whatever, but it's all good. It's just, I think on another note for workflow is when COVID hit, I think everybody, no matter what company, unless you're selling toilet paper products or something, probably everybody hit the pause button or the stop button at least for a day and got, hey, what's going on here? We need to reevaluate. When that happened, everybody had meetings over here at Primitive. One thing was, if I didn't have help tickets, I still would have plenty of things to do for this company.
Yeah.
Whether you're doing, patch management or something else like that, that's one thing, but I'm not just talking updates and busybody stuff like that. It's just, looking at our goals for the company and what software do we need? What software can we tweak, or what procedures, or, where can I fill a missing void? So, I knew, actually, I felt like I had more work to do when COVID hit with less tickets and less, questions about this is broken or that's not working or something like that. I felt like I had more things to do at that time in that moment than I did on a regular day before COVID hit. So a little change of workflow, just interesting. Always have something to do.
Yeah, it's a good point you bring that up, because what a lot of people don't realize is the true, or this is going to be me pontificating for a little
bit. Sure.
But the true purpose of IT in an organization is not to fix things that are broken,
sure,
but to improve business processes, increase efficiency, and therefore increase productivity of the organization as a whole through the use of technology and that sort of stuff. And so like help desk support really is such a small portion of that. There's so many things. Like if you have a good technical mind who's also familiar with the business needs, the stuff that you could put in place by way of automation, by different software, everything like that, is, we're a force multiplier. So you should be spending most of your time doing that other stuff and not responding to tickets.
Exactly, so that's correct.
Is what you need to do to reduce the amount of time that you're spending on tickets so that you could focus on the real high impact work.
Well, a funny twist on tickets, it's a nice play word on tickets, is using our ticket solution is I got HR on board now. We've been working on an HRS system to streamline onboarding processes and offboarding processes. That's one project that we've been working on together, but I like to work with departments to fix, I don't want to say fix, but how can I better things or make it easier for them? But the funny thing is with ticketing systems, like, well, HR, you get the same questions over and over again. How would you like it if there was a form that was in Slack that somebody could fill out and present it to you? And I had to probably nudge 4 to 5 times. And then while we're working on the HRS project, the HR department got pulled off of that project because they were so busy with quote unquote DM tickets. And I go, okay, perfect. Let me screen share real quick. I'm going to solve your problem in less than 5 minutes. Let me show you what I think we can mock up real quick for you. Are you on board? They said, wow, we didn't know this was possible. They go, okay, no worries that we nudged a couple times, but that's starting to fill that void too, which is amazing. It's just, a lot of people, it's thinking outside the box. It's most people, I don't want to say most people, but previous ticket like needs or thoughts was like, oh, well, ticketing is just for IT. It's just for tech. No, it could be for, e-commerce brought a new angle because you got e-commerce support, right? You've got, talking to the customers that way. But internally, like we have design requests, we've got HR requests, we've got, accounting, the sky's the limit on everything. So that's actually my next project next month is, just getting all those forms set up and just teaching somebody for maybe 15, 20 minutes, like here's how it's going to work inside Slack. But if I can teach somebody a new system like that makes their job easier and streamlines their department in 15, 20, even 30 minutes, it's going to change the game for them for the rest of the year and, for years to come. So I'm excited for it, definitely.
Yeah, I've done very similar things here, and both on the, people come to me and be like, hey, can you help us with managing all these requests? And it's come from that way, and it's like, hey, let's look at this ticketing system. Does the one that we use, will it work for you, or do we want to do something else? To people being like, hey, I like how you guys do this. Can I have that as well?
That's literally how it came from me. We love the drop downs. We like the automated responses. How does that work?
Yeah, and I mean, even if they're not using all of those functionality, all those different features and stuff, just having a way to manage that flow of requests is huge, and to track it, and even if going further down, like reporting on volume and stuff like that, it's huge. And I found it really has helped out people. I think we have like 5 of our departments right now using the system. So it's really neat to see that adoption. And
it spread like wildfire for sure. When now this department's like, why didn't Ricky try to get me on board on that? That's nice. It's that shiny new tool that everybody wants.
Yep. And I have a feeling that we're probably going to get more departments on board with that. And yeah, I just completely lost my train of thought.
No worries. I haven't even done lunch yet. So I totally...
Oh man, I haven't either. So it took me until just a little while ago to finish my coffee for the morning.
Well, that would be a fun one we could do on another episode. But I have only drank 2 cups of coffee my whole life, and I've got a heck of a lot of energy for doing tech somehow. So I don't know where I get that. It's just bottled water.
I only do one a day, so I try not to be a coffee addict. But so, anyways, going back to that. So with ticketing systems and adoption by other teams. So, okay, I know where I'm going to go next with this. So,
cool.
Okay, so you mentioned Trello. So
yes,
is that something that you use as more of a personal tool, or have you implemented it as on the team level for project management?
So Trello was my ticketing. I'm just messing. It was on the personal level for me, doing all my customer based stuff almost 10 years ago. I forgot how long I've been using Trello for. It's been quite a long time, at least the whole time since I've been here at Primitive. But I did use it on the personal note before. I do keep separate accounts. I don't have company resources on my personal Trello and vice versa. Plus I want SSO. Got to have the single sign-on. But so yeah, I actually internally, that's another thing that where I have these tools in the toolbox. We don't force a project management, system or software solution. Everybody kind of has their, back in the days, it's probably physical Post-it notes or Post-it note apps on the desktop. And then once departments start getting busier and busier and busier, or back in those days, they might have not have been a laptop user and working remote. They would have had, their notes written on text files on their desktop that might not have been part of their Google Drive or a shared drive or something else like that. And they're like, well, Ricky, I'm on vacation. I need to touch one of these notes. I go, yeah, it was like the good old fashioned planner or using a digital calendar difference, right? So that was it's still like one of those tools in the toolbox where everybody does have an account. We do go over on onboarding that, hey, these are uses that it could be used for, but I call it the 5 minutes of how to be a Trello expert is how we present it. And it's basically like, if you do this, everything's drag and drop, everything moves, everything can be renamed. And it's a blank canvas. It's a virtual whiteboard for you. How do you want to use it? And then we could supercharge it. We can bring collaborators in there. We can make it a department thing. But it's pretty much just, here's this shiny new little card and here's this board and you have this as an option. Do you want to use this today or do you not want to use this? So it's still kind of optional for us. But we've got, I'd say, about 40% of departments now on board with it. But it always comes kind of similar, like the ticketing option for departments is, hey, they know it's there. They've used it somehow, some way, but their process, I guess, is working okay for them, even though we kind of nudged them a little bit. And they go, wow, I'm getting bogged down. I'm getting overloaded. Or the good old fashioned communication. How can we improve communication and organization between our team members and with the company? So we, like as mentioned, we don't have another solution there for that. Trello is that. I start with that because I feel it's the easiest to use. It's very straightforward. And if we need more bells and whistles, if the company is using Trello and we need more features, then I'll go ahead and possibly transition elsewhere. But we haven't gotten to that point yet. So yeah. But yeah, anyways, Trello is a miracle maker. That's how I was able to be a one-man team for so long with things and stay organized. But that was basically, if I had a request come in or something, that was a Trello card with a checklist item, and I put the date somebody contacted me and all that. So it was a lot of manual things. So my Trello usage is lowered down. I'm basically just using it for my implementation projects or anything that I'm planning or forecasting or working on and so forth, or even my SOP or my training guides where I have all my checklists for how to configure for a new hire or something, or a new Mac computer. And then I have different checklists for, configuration steps, unwrap the box, but inventory management, all that type of stuff. So
yeah, that's kind of where I was going with it is, when you talk about your different sources of work, you have your tickets, which tend to be your, at least for us, are the short term break fix type thing, and then you have your longer term projects. And ticketing platforms aren't necessarily great for those longer term.
That is exactly right. Yes.
And of course, those project management systems aren't really great for those really rapid turnaround things. So, we use Jira. So Trello for software engineers. So,
yes.
So, so we have that, we use those two platforms to manage all, pretty much all of our workflow. But the challenge is you'll get some things that are kind of in a gray area. It's like, is it a ticket or is it a project? Or what if something becomes, starts as a ticket and becomes a project? Like, how do you manage that? And I think that being able to define those things and identify where something belongs really helps with managing your workflows. And so, using it, even if you don't have it on a company wide level, if you just if you have that, a method of doing that, whatever that project management is, having two different methods of tracking those two different work streams, that I think is a lot. It ends up being very helpful.
It kept me sane.
I tried for the longest time to have everything in the ticketing system, and I tell you, nothing throws off ticketing metrics more than long-term projects.
Well, I'll share a funny thing from my metrics on is that you obviously get our first response is pretty, we just adopted it in January. So obviously our metrics are only going to be off a couple months and so forth, or a quarter here. First response for us, average is probably going to be around 15 to 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to say every ticket's like that, but it's starting to kind of creep up because realizing there's different priorities now. So we don't have to treat everything as 911 or as a personal DM. So I feel like those metrics are fluctuating a little bit, but not in a bad red area or anything there. But you're exactly right. So one of my drop downs is new hire request is a thing. And so we basically have a form filled out for first name, last name, desired email address, even though it is going to still be first name, last name type of format for us, their personal email, because I like to use that for welcome emails, onboarding and all that type of stuff. But all those questions are great, but that ticket will go ahead and sit in our queue, right? And I'm like, my challenge lately, it's like, okay, that is going to turn into a Trello card anyways, because I have kind of a template Trello card with steps on, what to do now that request has been made. And I'm like, okay, I think I need to close this, say, hey, thank you, it's in the queue. Go ahead and close the ticket. I can reopen it and confirm that everything's complete, because it might be 4, 5, 6, 7 days out or something where, this hire is maybe a month out. I don't need to keep a ticket open for a month. My metrics are going to be ridiculous. So that's kind of helped. I've gone ahead, say, chime back in. It's in the queue. Thank you. Do a screenshot of what that ticket looks like. Put it in my Trello card, and then go ahead and close the ticket out for that, and then reopen it if I need to, or send a personal, just a DM or something like that for them. But that's the metrics are always interesting. You don't want to keep everything in there for that reason. I talking about gray area is I was so against like text edit or notepad files. But because I've been doing so many of these, I've been in a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of implementation meetings, taking a lot of notes on whether it's the HRS software or new Jump Cloud meetings I've been in. But I call it my text edit meeting folder. And what that's actually doing is I'll have a Trello card for that because it's a calendar event for me. And I use Planaway to plug in with Trello. And what that does is it does a two-way communication with my Google Calendar. So I have a Google Calendar for a specific Trello board. And so I'll make a Trello card for, I might be meeting with Jump Cloud for a new feature we will not disclose. And, and I'm going to want to take notes in that meeting, but those notes are not going to fit a checklist in Trello because they need to be formatted a certain way, or maybe they're just mumbo jumbo, like notes, brainstorming that I've had, or they might actually be tasks that I want to do after that meeting. So I'll collect it all in a text file. I'll go ahead and attach that text file in Trello, and I'll make a checklist out of that if there's anything I need to do, post that meeting or that text file notes. And so that's kind of been my gray thing has been the text file lately. And it's funny because that's a white text file. It's a white background, but it's not gray. So I call it the white area or something. But that's been my bridge between everything. But it's helped me. I used to feel like, oh, I got to go create a card. I got to go format it in Trello. But it's like sometimes these meetings are on the fly and I've got another one followed the next hour. So I've got to figure out some way to jot that down and move over. So it's kind of been my bridge, is based on my tools and our ticketing system. I got a text file or something, and then I'll go ahead and get it over to Trello. That way I have some type of real history, but I'll still keep that text file, on our department drive or something called meeting notes or something, where I still have that raw file, but then I also have it attached back over to the Trello card, and then I format it in a thing. But I try not to spend too much time formatting because it doesn't have to look pretty. It just has to make sense to my department and I. So it's been good. It's working out great. So that's definitely my maturity and my evolution from this whole process has kind of gotten to that point today.
Yeah, I do very similar thing with Google Docs where I'll open something up and I'll just start taking notes. And actually, this shows how busy I get and may miss like feature releases. And also it adds to Google's, they tend to be silent with some feature releases. just today, or maybe possibly yesterday, I realized in Google Calendar they now have an option on there to create a meeting notes doc. If on the
Oh, that's going in a Trello card to do later. For me, that's going to.
It may be, you know, it may be limited to certain account types. So like we're on an enterprise account, but I just saw that. I'm like, oh man! And so it's like you click on it, it titles the doc to line up with the meeting, and it attaches it to the meeting invite.
Oh, it's beautiful.
So I'm like, I'm going to start using this. So yeah, and it just goes to show that, you know, there's always new stuff coming out, and you have to pay attention if you're going to make use of all the new hotness. So
yes, yeah, I like calling it the hotness. I'm the same way. Also, the thing is, it's a feature like that might not have meant too much to me when I was a solo person, but now, like, I need a shared doc. You know, if it needs to be edited, it needs to be brainstormed together or collaborated on, it definitely needs to be something that can work two ways that way. You know, the good old fashioned text edit worked great with just me, and you file it away and then, you know, whatever. But yeah, that's a helpful feature. That's one of those things that makes me excited for how everything evolves. Is we're always trying to refine that process, how that can change, how that can work. I pride JumpCloud how they keep those KBs updated and current. I actually was looking through one of the KB articles. I forgot exactly which one it was. And I had worked with a couple members of the team that did that feature. I don't know if it was a staging feature or one of the features that recently came out. But I realized I logged back into it, looked at that KB, and I'm like, I looked at the original KB. Look, this is all updated. Who keeps this stuff updated? So it just was cool to see that flow and that side of it.
I will have to say that that has been good to see, and it's because we have a veritable army of tech writers now.
I love it.
So that is great. As you know, one of my primary roles here is actually as to be a JumpCloud customer. You know, so I'm a JumpCloud admin. I'm in the same boat that you're in. So I use our KB. It's wonderful to see that sort of stuff.
Guess JumpCloud should start charging for the KB. It's so good.
Don't give them any ideas.
Well, I was gonna know the funniest thing I reflect back on it when I talk JumpCloud. Like when I say I'm old school, I'm not old school JumpCloud, but old school for me is like 3 years. So I had a different GUI interface with the admin dashboard. I remember some of those older YouTube videos, but they still stay relevant. But just to keep those updated, realize they're great guides, but it's like, man, we need to change this because the UI has changed and everything else has changed on things. But you start seeing how that's been updated too. I'm like, that takes time and work to do that. So
it does, and so I'm glad that we have a team, and that goes that runs parallel to the IT team. An IT team. We should all strive to be like you and keep our, keep that documentation up to date.
Well, I'm getting some ideas from JumpCloud. So.
Oh man. So,
it's such a rabbit hole discussing flows and everything like that. Workflows is so cool. It's one thing that you can always learn something. I'm always an open mind. I just love to see how everybody kind of tinkers and tackles their projects and in some of their pain points and stuff. It just, everybody can learn from each other. Like I haven't, I refer to a lot of things in the tech world by different terminology than what's taught in a classroom or a virtual classroom or a book or a how-to guide or certification course. But in the end result, I don't know how competitive people are. Like I know more or more, but I come from an interesting background where I'm just that friendly guy that would like to just soak up intel, share intel, and just see how everybody can work together and evolve. Whether we're working for the same company or I don't know on the competition side if I want to be that nice guy, but somebody else in the industry, it's always nice. Oh, you're an admin. Oh, great. How do you do this or how do you tackle that? So it's been a joy just chatting with you, Ryan. I dig this for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. This is one of the reasons why I really like doing this podcast, because who doesn't like just sitting there talking shop with somebody? So that's all we have for this episode. Again, my guest today has been Ricky Jordan, the Senior Computer Systems Admin at Primitive Apparel, or as he likes to call it, the guy with all the hats.
Like it definitely.
So thanks a lot, Ricky, for joining us, and hope you have a great time. A great day.
Definitely, Ryan. My best. Have a great one.
All right. Bye.
See you.
Thank you for tuning in to Where's the Any Key. If you like what you heard, please feel free to subscribe. Again, my name is Ryan Bacon. I lead IT at JumpCloud, where the team here is building a cloud-based directory platform that provides frictionless, secure access to virtually any IT resource from trusted devices anywhere. You can learn more and even set up a free account at jumpcloud.com.